Hello, mathematicians. Today we're going to be learning about ratios, more specifically how to convert customary measurement units using equivalent ratios. To get us started, here we have a customary conversions table. We have different types of measurements such as length, weight, and capacity. And within these, we're converting between different units, but still maintaining an equivalent ratio. To sum that up, this table shows the ratio relationships between larger and smaller units of customary conversions for length, weight, and capacity. So here we have our first question, which says, how many feet are in 48 inches? So to get us started, we're first going to take a look at the two units we're talking about. And in this case, we're talking about feet and inches. So we're going to take a look at our table and look for feet and inches. Once we've found that on our table, we're going to take the information from our table and write that as a ratio. So we know that 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. And we're going to use this original ratio to find out how many feet there are in 48 inches. In order to do that, we have to create an equivalent ratio. So we're going to make this equal to x feet over 48 inches. So the first thing we need to do is maintain the fact that we're talking about feet in both our numerators and maintain the fact that we're talking about inches in both our denominators. We don't know how many feet there are in 48 inches, which is why there's an x there. And we know that we want to find out how many feet there are in 48 inches, which is why 48 inches is the denominator. So now that we have our equivalent ratios here, we're going to figure out what x is equal to. And so we ask ourselves, what do we need to multiply 12 by to get 48? If you're not sure, you could also do 48 divided by 12. And 48 divided by 12 is equal to 4. So that means that 12 times 4 is equal to 48. And in order to maintain an equivalent ratio, we have to take the numerator and also multiply that by 4. And so we get 4 feet. That means that there are 4 feet in 48 inches. Here we have our next question, which says, how many inches are in 5 feet? So the first thing we need to do is take a look at our units. We're talking about inches and we're talking about feet. So in our table, we're going to look at where we're talking about both of these. And again, we have 1 foot is equal to 12 inches. We're going to take that information from the table and write that as a ratio. Next, because we're looking for how many inches are in 5 feet, inches is going to have an x before it, but we're going to write 5 feet in our ratio. Notice that I put 5 feet on top because the other numerator is also talking about feet, and I put inches on the bottom because the other denominator is talking about inches. Now we're going to look at the numerators because the numerators have 2 numbers. And we ask ourselves, what do I need to multiply 1 by to get 5? 1 times 5 is equal to 5. So whatever we do to the numerator, we also have to do to the denominator to maintain an equivalent ratio. So 12 times 5 is equal to 60. That means that there are 60 inches in 5 feet. Here we have another question which says, how many pounds are in 80 ounces? Again, the first thing we need to do is look for these units in our table. And in our table, it says that 1 pound is equal to 16 ounces. So the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and write that ratio. Then we don't know how many pounds there are in 80 ounces, so we're going to make sure that there's a variable, which is that letter x in front of pounds, because that's a number we do not know but are going to figure out. Then we're going to include 80 ounces. Again, make sure that both numerators are talking about the same thing, which in this case it is pounds, and both denominators are talking about the same thing, which in this case is ounces. Now that we have our equivalent ratio set up, we're going to figure out how many pounds there are in 80 ounces. Now, both denominators have numbers, so we're going to use those. We want to know what we can multiply 16 by to get 80. And if you don't know, we could just do 80 divided by 16, which is equal to 5. So 16 times 5 is equal to 80. And whatever we do to the denominator, we must also do to the numerator. So that means we're going to take 1 and multiply that by 5. And we get 5, which means that there are 5 pounds in 80 ounces. Here our next question says, how many ounces are in 2 pounds? So the first thing we need to do is we need to take a look at our units. We're talking about ounces and pounds here again. And based on our table, we know that 1 pound has 16 ounces. And so we're going to take this original ratio to figure out how many ounces are in 2 pounds. Well, because we don't know how many ounces are in 2 pounds, make sure you put an X or a different variable before ounces. And then make sure you put 2 pounds on the top because our numerators are talking about pounds and our denominators are talking about ounces. Because our numerators have the 2 numbers, we ask ourselves, what can we multiply 1 by to get 2? And we know that 1 times 2 is equal to 2. So in order to maintain our ratios equivalent, we're also going to multiply the denominator by 2. 16 times 2 is equal to 32. So that means that there are 32 ounces in 2 pounds. Here we have how many gallons are in 36 quarts. So the first thing we need to do is look at our units, which are gallons and quarts, and look for that in our table. And our table says that 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. So we're going to take that information and write a ratio with it. Then we know that we don't know the number of gallons in 36 quarts, so we're going to write X gallons, and then quarts is going to be 36. Make sure that we're maintaining the same things in our numerator, so gallon, and the same things in our denominator, which is quarts and quarts. And now that we set up our equivalent ratios, because our denominators are the 2 with numbers in it, we ask ourselves, what do we need to multiply 4 by to get 36? And if you don't know, we could just do 36 divided by 4, which is equal to 9. So that means that 4 times 9 is equal to 36. And whatever we do to the denominator, we have to do to the numerator. So we're going to take the 1 and multiply that by 9, and we get 9. So that means that there are 9 gallons in 36 quarts. Our final question says, how many quarts are in 6 gallons? Again, we're going to take a look at our units and look for that in our table. We're talking about quarts and gallons again, so we know that 1 gallon is equal to 4 quarts. So we set that up as a ratio. Then we don't know how many quarts there are in a gallon, so make sure there's a variable in front of it until we solve it. And we know we're talking about 6 gallons. Now, again, make sure that we're talking about gallons in our numerator and quarts in our denominators. And because our numerators have the 2 numbers, we ask ourselves, what do we need to multiply 1 by to get 6? And we know that 1 times 6 is equal to 6. So whatever we do to the numerator, we have to also do to the denominator. So 4 times 6 is equal to 24. So that means that there are 24 quarts in 6 gallons.